Yo, what up? It's ORRION Online. That's Orion Online. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we're here for another round of Homeboy Talk. Let's talk that talk.
Yo, what's going on, people? Welcome back to Homeboy Talk. My name is Deon Donovan, writer and creator of the infamous Florida Man at Title Page Comics. I'm also on YouTube with Behind the Scene Podcast, and this is my homeboy.
What's going on, everybody? This is your homeboy, Daniel Stinette, a.k.a. 𝐀𝐔𝐃. You can catch me on 𝐀𝐔𝐃 Gaming on YouTube as well as Twitch. Like, follow, and subscribe. Let's talk that talk.
So, looking back on the year 2020, it claimed another victim of its hit list, and that was Cyberpunk
2077.
2077. Thank you. Boo, yeah. Cyberpunk 2077 was supposed to be one of the Game of the Year worthy additions to your game library, and it turned out to be a complete bust. And, I mean, everyone was talking about it. Even my sister, who's not even a gamer, heard about how Cyberpunk 2077 was a bust. And it became a new comparison to how bad do you feel in life? Oh, like Cyberpunk 2077 did or whatever. So, with Cyberpunk's controversy, man, Daniel, you go first, man. Looking back, how did this shit even happen, man? Like, what was up with them and the developers?
Well, I mean, from the very beginning, like, Cyberpunk was doomed to fail because to kind of understand where it got to in 2020, you got to look back to how it started. Mm-hmm. And Cyberpunk got announced back in 2012. So off the bat, CD Projekt Red were already deep in production for The Witcher 3, and that came out to critical success. Blockbuster success. That was, that's by far, until Cyberpunk, that was their biggest game to come out. And just from the beginning, you kind of had this feeling that, okay, something about Cyberpunk is just really off. One of the biggest things about The Witcher 3 right before it came out, in between when they showed it at E3 through those years and it finally released, was that there was a lot of downgrading going on from what they were showing. From the original trailer, the original trailer came out, it had all this ridiculous lighting and all these, graphical details and all this stuff going on, all the physics, and you look at this game and you're like, yo, if this game looks anything like when it comes out, it's going to be the most ridiculous looking game ever.
Yeah. Then
as we got closer to The Witcher 3's release and they showed another trailer, it was like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. This looks nothing like what you just showed us like a few years ago. Something like, it's obvious y'all had to make some concessions to get this game to run on PS4 and Xbox One. Now, granted, the game came out, I played through the whole thing in the DLC. Game was fantastic. Story was good, gameplay was, but it was a decent game overall. So from that point, it was almost kind of like CD Projekt Red was drinking their own Kool-Aid at that point, because then, they started up the whole PR cycle once again for Cyberpunk, and they were like, in Cyberpunk you're gonna be able to do this and that, and you're gonna have all this and that and that and that, and it was just, they were just hyping themselves up.
Keanu Reeves came out,
and then Keanu Reeves came out during the Microsoft conference, and he was Johnny Silverhand, and so all this stuff just happened, and in the background, apparently, the actual developers and people who were making the game were getting overworked, getting underpaid. Damn. And there was so many issues and bugs going on with the game that they were apparently bringing it up to the heads of CD Projekt Red, and they were like, look, something's going on with the development of this game. We need to delay this game more than what you guys are putting out there, because there's no way we're going to be able to get all this going. It was almost like an Elder Scrolls Skyrim situation. Right. You know what I mean? Where, if you remember when Skyrim first came out on 360 and PS3, the game was so buggy that you literally could not play it on the PS3 because it would just crash and wouldn't run. And Bethesda wouldn't even give PS3 fans a refund for the game. So people were sitting there buying this game. Y'all getting all the praise and whatnot for the game, but y'all didn't want to give anybody any money when it happened. Same thing happened to Cyberpunk. The heads of CD Projekt Red just kept letting the hype build, and they weren't managing expectations. So you got people on Reddit, you got people on Facebook, you got people on Twitter, on social media going wild over this game, saying you're gonna be able to do this and this and that and that. the point where you knew things were starting to go off the rails was, I want to say probably sometime towards the end of 2019, going to the beginning of last year, 2020, when they started to delay it, and then that's when I guess social media at that point was social media was a lot more advanced now in 2021 than it was back in 2012, 2013, all the places like that. So when you make a big statement as in, we have to delay this game because of X, Y, Z, social media is going to respond. And social media let them have it. They're like, at first it was like, oh, okay, we understand, take as long as you need. And then after like delay number 3 and 4, people were kind of like, okay, this is ridiculous. Like, what's going on with this game? If you were going to have to delay it that long, then just say, look, we're going to indefinitely delay it until we get the game where we need it to be. We will let you know when it's ready. However, apparently behind the scenes while all this is going on and social media is on fire, the heads of CD Projekt Red were like, look, we can't keep delaying this game. We have to eventually get this game out, which understandable, but they were trying to push it too fast. So even up until almost like, I believe they said like 2 weeks before the game even released, they were still finding bugs, and the developers were like, look, y'all need to delay this game.
God
like,
damn.
I understand y'all went gold and y'all printing discs and everything else like that, but we need to delay this game. Like, this game is not ready. Push it anyway. And they pushed it. And what you're seeing is the results of hubris, of total mismanagement, of your team. And this game, okay, for what it's worth, because I bought the game. Granted, after I played for how long and saw how trash it was, I went ahead and got my refund for it. The game does run better on Xbox One and PS5 because you could tell the game was built for a high-end PC, and then they downgraded, obviously with the PS5 and Series X being stronger than PS4 and Xbox One, it's going to be able to run it a little bit better. But still, it's not good. You still got glitches and shit going on. So for the most part, the game was decent from what I played of it. Not mind-blowing, but still decent. But with the amount of stuff that was going on in that game, and the glitches, and just everything going on, like, this is quite, honestly, in my opinion, probably one of the biggest failures in gaming history I've ever seen. I've never seen a game so mishandled the way that Cyberpunk has been. And the crazy thing about it, though, is that, like, I think just yesterday or the day before, I can't remember, they just came out and said that CD Projekt Red, well, apparently it's the biggest launch game of all time. In terms of revenue that they made from sales, yes, from sales and from online sales, from digital downloads, it is the biggest launch title of all time.
They blowing smoke up our asses.
No, I mean, this is actual data. This is actual data that came out. So it's like, it just kind of shows you there was so much hype behind this game that there was no way that they were going to jump up and be like, well, guys, just letting you know there's something wrong with our game, we're going to delay it. No, they knew what they were doing. They let the hype get so high that they weren't going to stop it. They knew the game was messed up, and they pushed it out anyway because they were like, well, by the time we get your money and you see that the game is trash, we already got your money. Then the whole debacle with them trying to force Microsoft and Sony to give refunds and never ask them about it. They were like, well, just go ahead and give them refunds. And Sony literally came out in a statement. They were like, CD Projekt Red never contacted us about giving out refunds, but we'll give you refunds to make sure that, because we're going to do the right thing and give people refunds for this trash game. And we're also going to take our game off of PlayStation Store to show that we don't support developers who do this kind of stuff. Microsoft, they let the game stay on the store because Microsoft and CD Projekt Red had an agreement for the advertisement for Cyberpunk. That's a different story. But just overall, it's just the game on a scale of 1 to 10. Even if the game had been completely fine with no glitches or anything like that, it's still like maybe at best like a 7 out of 10 game. But the glitches, it just puts it over the top for me. It's Basuda, just straight trash.
That's quite a statement, man. That is quite a statement, because this was supposed to be a game changer.
Oh yeah,
this was supposed to be like the Dark Knight of superhero movies. You know what I mean? So
they were trying to hype it up as like, because you got to think going into 2020, especially when we had our Game of the Year episode. You know, that Cyberpunk was supposed to be one of those games that everybody said, Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us Part 2, Final Fantasy 7, none of them want to release at the same time. And Cyberpunk, because Cyberpunk is so big, it's going to win Game of the Year and this and that and that. Well, it came out in time for the Game Awards. And as of right now, I think it maybe had maybe 3 or 4 awards.
Damn, man. Oh, what do you think about the whole situation, man? What do you think about this debacle of a game launch?
Whew. Came in.
It's a lot of process.
Yeah, it's a lot to process because I came in as a YouTube watcher of all this shit, of all, come in watching, of course, the people on YouTube that's got a lot to say about it, stuff like that. Your main, I'm not going to be shouting out their names, but you guys know who you guys watch on YouTube, and they all have said the same shit, and I'm like, oh yeah, they're all hyped about it. Personally, I wanted to ignore all gameplay of Cyberpunk 2077 because I wanted to experience it myself. Until I heard a shitstorm brew. And I was like, okay, I need to know what the fuck's going on. I come in, you got the most angry YouTubers out there. Some of the people who are known for being angry are angry. They're hot about it. So I had to go ahead and figure out what was people's, what was the issue with it, stuff like that. So to find out, man, it's coming out trash and buggy and stuff like that. Then I think what really made me dive deep into the story is when Sony said, I'm refunding everybody. Now I was like, oh, never in our world we've heard anything like that. Never. Sony be like, fuck that.
We don't want it.
Yeah. We refunding the shit, which was crazy because I said, Sony? Wow, okay. Normally you would hear maybe sometimes Steam will pull the game and stuff like that, but Steam was like,
dog, like imagine if the NFL, you went to the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl sucked and the NFL was like, yeah, that game sucked, that was trash, here's your money back. This, unparalleled. Never before in video game history have we seen some shit like this before.
Never. You can't. I couldn't even fathom it. So I sat there. I was like, "All right, cool. I'm gonna see what the fuck's going on. What's really going on?" And in orderly fashion, I went on and said, I went on YouTube, typed in Cyberpunk 2077 bugs. Oh, we talking about. You couldn't even be a damn Twitch streamer because you could be creating your character and he looks in the mirror and his dick is all out. And I'm like, oh, okay. You can get banned real fast because your damn avatar wants to be pulling his dick all out on stream and shit, And we're talking about the common bugs. You got characters doing a T stance, Like you guys are familiar with the T stance, where the T pose is like where the character's just stuck on T and doesn't do any action till then. We got characters levitating. We got motorcycles flying. We got
trash cans flipping upside down.
Yeah, got trash cans flipping upside down. You got you got eyes and mouth like bulging out. So I was like, oh. Ooh, what the fuck were they thinking? What was CD Projekt Red thinking?
Money.
And yeah, I mean, well, and I also saw that, people pre-order the shit, and the more you keep delaying it, you're gonna have companies like, and I'm not saying companies, but countries. It's almost like you have to fulfill that promise, and they're gonna press you on. They're gonna press you if you don't fulfill that promise. It's like, hey, I understand you delayed it about a few times, stuff like that, but you said that this game is gonna come out this day. You need to push it. So I can see why countries would press it and stuff like that. And I can see the heads of CD Projekt Red press it and stuff like that. And it bit them all in the ass.
See, but it comes down to this, right? The legendary Shigeru Miyamoto, creator of Mario and Nintendo, said in a famous quote, he said, a delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game will be forever bad. Oof. Or basically like that.
Yeah.
Paraphrase. That's basically what he said.
Right.
The biggest thing I heard from people, they were like, well, CD Projekt Red was getting death threats and this and that. So, it's almost like you guys are the reason why that CD Projekt, that Cyberpunk is so bad. And it's like, wait a minute, hold on. these are multi-million, possibly multi-billion-dollar gaming companies from the stuff that they make.
Right.
You mean to tell me that y'all are so weak-hearted that you let angry fanboys online and nerds bully you to the point where you felt like you had to push this game that could potentially tank your future as a publisher or the studio?
Yeah.
Because you got a little death threat. Now, don't get me wrong, people. I'm not condoning death threats. I'm not condoning threats against anybody's person or anything else like that. I think that's messed up. However, when you have such a big product like this, is getting threatened by people worth tanking your company's future on? No, it's not. There's no, in my opinion, there's no excuse for this. If you knew, and I mean, we heard word that even as far back as 2019, internally, CD Projekt Red's developers were constantly coming to the heads of CD Projekt Red and telling them, look, you guys need to stop going out onto E3, these game shows, and telling people that they can basically do whatever they want in this game, because it's nowhere close to being realized like that. There's a lot of stuff going on wrong with this game, but CD Projekt Red was like, to go with Deon said, they were letting the hype build. They had all these pre-order numbers going on, and they knew that this game was hyped to the high heavens. They were not going to do anything to derail it further than what they had to do. I understand that you have a responsibility to the consumers, responsibility to the shareholders, and everything else like that. But to go back to Miyamoto, a delayed game is eventually good. It doesn't matter how long you delay that game. If that game ends up being, it's like this, right? Let's look at an example. Look at Duke Nukem Forever. Duke Nukem Forever took 12 years as development hell. That game took 12 years to make, right? When the game finally came out, the game was hot trash. Just because it was a product of its time 12 years ago, it just didn't resonate with people 12 years ago. Okay, whatever. Imagine if the game ended up being like a blockbuster, right? And it ended up taking the world by storm. Would anybody have cared at that point that the game took 12 years to make? No, because people would have been like, okay, the game's finally here. The game's amazing. I'm glad that we finally got it. So now you have Cyberpunk. Game was announced in 2012. Comes out 2020. 8 years later, the game is absolute trash. Well, guess what? Now people are going to go back and they're going to actually bring that up now. It's like, so you're telling me it took you guys 8 years of gassing this game up and all this stuff going on, and you still managed to mess it up this badly? So it's like, it doesn't. That's why I don't give any excuses, because it's like, you, at the end of the day, you have the choice to what you want to do with your game. If you are a responsible game developer, you're going to manage expectations, you're going to be realistic, and you're going to have a hard talk with you and your development team and say, look, guys, what's wrong with this game? What are the major bugs? What can we do? What can we not do? How can we convey that to the consumers so that their expectations are managed when the game comes out, so that we're not looking like fools when launch day comes? They didn't do that. It bit them in the butt. Yeah, you made money, but now you look like the most incompetent studio in Europe right now, because everybody's looking like, how could you mess this up? Oh, and on top of that, you're also transphobic as hell too. But we're not going to talk about that one.
Word, right. I mean, from the outside looking in, I'm not the most current hardcore gamer here, but I think this game, Cyberpunk 2077, kind of marks the stamp of the end of an era in gaming. And this quote-unquote era of gaming where you have game trailers, and the first thing people ask is this gameplay? Is this gameplay? Is this game footage? Where you have game after game after game coming out with trailers with gameplay that never made the cut to the actual game. You know what I'm saying? That promised things and didn't deliver. With empty promises of the gaming industry kind of being a little bit one of smoke and mirrors, where they're promising you things and then you buy the game and it's not in it. I remember Final Fantasy 15, they had a whole segment in this one city and it had this cool sequence that was in the trailer, and I was playing the game like, where is the sequence? I played through the city and I was like, well, where is this fucking sequence that was in the trailer that made the game so hype? Never made the cut of the game. So in this era of smoke and mirrors and pre-orders and pre-order bonuses, and game developers are already getting the money based on pre-order sales and hype, do you think, All right, and you too, Daniel. I'll have O go first. Do you think that this kind of shit will happen again, ever, in the gaming industry?
No, it'll never happen again in the gaming industry to this extent. Will it happen? Let me rephrase that. Yes, it will happen again, but nowhere to the extent of this, because this is a cautionary. Well, you know what? Actually, let me go back on that, because while I want to hope that this never happens again, this has happened before, even before Cyberpunk. Do y'all remember No Man's Sky?
Oh yeah.
This almost same exact thing happened. They got hyped, they hyped everybody up with all these trailers of different things that you could do, and you could fly around in this procedurally generated universe and do all this different stuff and go to every planet, and no planet was the same, and all this other stuff going on. And then the game came out, and the game was basically boring. It was full of bugs, glitches, all this stuff that was promised in the game before never came out, and they got reamed behind it. Now, granted, ironically, it actually won an award for best ongoing game or whatever it's like that this year at the Game Awards, because Hello Games, or I believe Hello Games was the one to make it, they went so far into the game to update it to make it better after they got reamed about it, that now it's a very fun game from what I've heard, and a lot of people suggest going back and playing it if you haven't played it before. So, yes, I now that I'm thinking about it, I do believe it will happen again, but nowhere to the extent of Cyberpunk, because Cyberpunk is now a cautionary tale to all the rest of these developers out there that you can only stretch the truth so far before that rubber band finally snaps. And when it snaps, it's gonna snap hard. And to be honest, like it's gonna take some time for CD Projekt Red to regain people's trust after this. Like, I don't care if they came out and said freaking the Witcher 4 starring Ciri and Geralt and you know, Triss and everybody all in one giant mega game like Mass Effect is coming out. People are gonna be like, okay, so is the game gonna be like Cyberpunk? Are you guys gonna lie about that too?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, you have to be careful what you do nowadays, especially in today's media, because media is a lot more unforgiving than it was back in 2012, 2013 time frame. If you give promises and you don't at least give at least 85% of that promise, you're gonna hear about it. So CD Projekt Red is gonna feel this for a while.
Oh, what you think, man?
Bro, I'm gonna tell you this right now. To piggyback off of what you guys are saying too. This needed to happen. It has to happen. It had to happen, because this has to be made. It has to be somebody needs to be made an example for the rest of the developers to be this incompetent, to allow this shit to go out there. The fact of the matter is that the tagline said, "Ready when it's ready." I'm you know what, I'm just I know I forgot what it really said, but it says something like, say it's ready when it's ready. Okay, so fucking live up to that word. If it's ready, like, you know, the disconnect between the suits and the developers and your fucking, you know, your team, you know, the fact of the matter is that there should have been an ongoing communication. Because I get that also COVID-19 had a factor where some had to work from home and stuff like that, but it's no excuse. You should always have that constant communication to be like, all right, what are the complications we're coming across? Well, it's passing in all flying colors in PC, because you know we're used to building making PC games and stuff like that. However, it's struggling pretty hard on a base model console. Base model PS4, base model Xbox, you know, struggling. Things are popping in. Shit, things are looking like N64 graphics before they actually fully load in the graphics stuff like that, because it's not able to handle the stuff. You know, you even got the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X struggling to push that game through, you know. Yet the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, yeah, they're doing pretty well. Then the PC is passing on fly colors and stuff like that. But this is a game that took 8 years, and they touted it up to be like, oh, it's gonna be the most amazing game. There should be no excuse why your base model is firing at low resolution and is struggling to load its textures. You know.
See, I'm guessing that's just one of those things that, like, I mean, once again, that's mismanagement of your personnel and overestimating what your capabilities are as a developer. You know, I mean, for those of you out there who have played Cyberpunk, you know just how big and detailed and expansive that game is. There's no way that game would have run the way that they were making it look like from the very beginning in those original, you know, trailers that come out to show what they're doing, driving around Night City and all that stuff like that. Like it's just too much. Like, I mean, shoot, look at games like Grand Theft Auto 5 and Spider-Man and stuff like that was on PS4 and whatnot. Like, there's only so much that you can do within the memory construct of the system in terms of data going from the bus. You know what I mean? Like there's so much that's going on back there, you know, having to deal with the LOA and all the different physics and everything you got going on. Like, honestly, that should have been one of those things that they should have just been like, look, this is for PC and for next gen consoles when they first announced it. Right. You know, now I don't know if that was some kind of agreement between them and like Xbox and PlayStation that they weren't allowed to talk about it just yet because at that point we hadn't heard anything about next gen consoles. Okay, I mean that makes sense and whatnot. And I guess maybe their original plan was to release it on current gen consoles before we finally got the PS5 and the Series X. But it was too ambitious. It was too ambitious for its own good. They didn't manage expectations, and now they are reaping what they're sowing.
Damn, man. Yeah, that's a fact, dude. That is a fact. And before we move on, I just want to know, you guys, your final thoughts on this whole debacle and kind of, did this damper your excitement for future games? Did this leave kind of a little bit of a permanent scar in your expectations for further gaming? Oh, you go first.
Let me say it is though. Developer, the head of CD Projekt came out and made a statement video. So we've all seen that. So he came in there, he took full responsibility. I think that's probably the first I've seen. Well, not the first, you know, but for somebody to come out publicly, make a video and accepted the downfall, I said, yeah, it's fucked up. However, let me go ahead and design in full 2077 graphics about a 2-year plan. 2-year plan? So now it's taking 10 years for Cyberpunk to get, to where it needs, what it should have been, because now you're looking at patch notes. You're looking at DLC content that you have no choice but to give people for free because you'd have fucked up. So you're looking at this game being a good game by 2022, and by then, bro, retail has already discounted the damn game. Now it's what, $29.99? So by the time 2022 and the game is something to go back to and stuff like that, it's going to be a great game to get for $19.99 on PS5, Xbox Series X, and all that stuff like that. But they know what they did, and shareholders, they were hemorrhaging money and stuff like that. Where now they're like, look at this, man, CD Projekt Red is looking at lawsuits upon lawsuits upon lawsuits, So stuff like this needed to happen. However, like I said, there's still a way for CD Projekt Red to recover, but to recover all that loss stuff like that, you're going to have to bust your ass, and you're going to have to keep that same energy that you're touting up to hype up your consumers and sit there and say, this is going to be the best game, this is going to be the best game. Yeah, you have potential being a game of the year in 2022 for a game that took an additional 2 years to look good, But it's going to be one of those things that's like, CD Projekt Red has to really, really bust their ass and pull through to make sure that people are getting a quality game. Because as of right now, to trust CD Projekt Red with another new IP and stuff like that, is going to be spooky for them. And if you're looking at people like, it's like, well, I'm going to invest in a new IP. I don't know. Maybe The Witcher and Cyberpunk's 2077 that's it for them. We're just going to see reiterations. We might see a Cyberpunk 2077 just going to have new DLCs, just like it's going to cover. It's probably going to cover what same factor as what GTA 5 is going through, with reiterations of 2077 zombie fucking mode. I don't know. New ass cars, new ass models, new ass heists, new ass shit. They're just gonna be building on top of 2077, and they had no choice but to do that because you got to try to save that IP as much as you can. We might see 2077 exist all the way to fucking PS6 and the next Xbox and shit, and by the time that graphics cards go to the 4000 series and shit like that, it's something that I feel like CD Projekt Red is going to be investing in over time. But I see that there is a potential good game over time. It's just going to take a while for CD Projekt Red to really get it together, and the developers and everything else to put it through its ranks of what is needed to keep that, to try to get things sold. Because yeah, we're gonna be owed all those free DLCs, but I'm telling probably like 5 years from now and stuff like that, they're gonna be throwing on some shit like that. Hell, they might go follow the same footprints as Grand Theft Auto to start having digital currency on that shit. Whatever the fuck they decide to do. However, there's a couple modes that I feel like they could they implement, because you really got modders who's actually trying to put third person view in there, which is, I think that the game is much needed, because the Grand Theft Auto 5 could switch from third person to first person. CD Projekt Red making that for 2077 should be no excuse. You should be able to switch in and out view ships stuff, So I feel like that's what they're going to be doing. They're going to be using 2077 to try to please their consumers as much as possible and try to get on their good side and really listen, because they have no choice. Because now your shareholders and your investors, stuff like that, they're angry. And for them to try to trust back in what CD Projekt Red is trying to do and stuff like that, they got a long way to go. But I'm hopeful they can come back from this, because like Daniel said, No Man's Sky has come back. What was it? Another one. The Xbox pirate game. What was that? Sea of Thieves. What came out as trash, but it got good over time. So I was like, there's ways of coming back, but it's all about what CD Projekt Red could do at this point. Because as of right now, I had no vote of confidence in that game, and I will probably get that game in 2022.
Shit. What about you, man?
I mean, it hasn't dampened my excitement for future games, because
You're pessimistic already, huh?
I wouldn't say pessimistic. It's more so like just more cautious.
Cautious, okay.
More cautious than usual. Just because every publisher and studio is different. You know what I mean? Like not every studio is gonna have the same amount of trouble that CD Projekt Red did. Now granted, I guess the new issue that's coming out with studios is more so the idea of employees being crunched, which is one of the bigger issues that needs to be addressed with some of these more popular studios. But other than that, you look at Naughty Dog. Yeah, they got their issues with crunch and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, you know that they're going to put out a quality product. You look at guys like Sony Santa Monica, the guys who made God of War. They're still going to put out a quality product. Even Capcom, with all their ridiculousness with how they do things.
Remember when Capcom cared?
Let's be real. There was a time where Capcom was just putting out just flop after flop, and people were like, "Yo, this may be the end of Capcom." And then they finally put out Monster Hunter World, which was a blockbuster for them. It's their highest selling title ever so far. And every company has their day to come back and shine in the sun again. And CD Projekt Red, I feel like, has a lot of things that they have to handle with themselves internally, not with just the quality of their game, especially with Cyberpunk, but they have to deal with their own levels of crunch they got going on, how their employees are being treated, and then also with their blatant transphobia that, the whole saga of that happening with the studio and everything like that. So they have a lot of soul searching to do to better themselves as a company and whatnot. And Judge Orion was saying, I don't think that they'll be down forever because, time heals all wounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Eventually, they'll learn from this. They'll come back strong. I hope they learn from this. They come back stronger and go from there. It's going to be a lot harder to gain the trust of consumers now than had this happened back in the mid 2010s. You know what I'm saying? Like if the game had came out in 2015, 2016, and it was bad, and they had their own No Man's Sky situation, then all right, it wouldn't have people still would have been outraged, but it would have been a lot more muted than it is now.
Right.
Now that it's 2020, 2021, and this is happening, oh no, you about to feel the full force because there's no excuse. So no, I don't feel too down about it for future games. Cause trust me, I still want to play Resident Evil 8. I still want to play God of War Ragnarok. I still want to play all these newer games coming out. It's just now I feel like consumers are going to be a lot more discerning about what we're seeing from companies, and just like y'all were saying earlier, that's the reason why you see a lot more CG trailers now having, in the bottom right-hand corner, the tiny print that says, this is not representative of actual gameplay, because they realize that they can't get away with just showing CGI trailers, and being like, oh, this game's going to be like this. No, it's not.
Yeah.
And Cyberpunk has kind of ruined that for everybody. So.
Word, man. My final thoughts on this is that kind of what you guys have stated. I think the consumers are now smart enough to know that they can't get set up for the okie doke anymore. Yeah. I think these bullshit CGI trailers, these early sneak previews, and when you don't even show gameplay, that shit doesn't cut anymore. I think we can end that era of the cinematic trailer, and I think we can get back to the basics of just showing gameplay, showing core mechanics, showing exactly what you're going to get in the final product, instead of just hype train, cinematics, shit you're never going to see in the game, shit that got cut. Oh, they were in this area in the trailer. Where is this area in the game? Yeah. You can't get to it. Oh, well, that's going to be in the DLC Season 3. It's like, what the fuck? You had this shit in the trailer. So I hope that other game developers can learn from the business practices of CD Projekt Red. And I'm not sure if it was the game developers, I'm not sure if the suits or the project head that played themselves, but I think definitely they played themselves in thinking that they were just going to release this shit at its current state and think people were just going to accept this and then make a boat ton of money and then on to the next one. And I believe the project head of this was, he's black, right? The project head of Cyberpunk?
No. So the game, well, the person who created the game originally is a tabletop game made back in the 80s.
Uh-huh.
He's black.
Okay.
And it's kind of like another Dungeons and Dragons, and so he was I guess the head person who they went to in terms of information about the game and what they wanted to do and whatnot. He was one of the producers, because obviously it's his board game, so right. Obviously he's gonna want to go in there and be like, okay, do this, that, and that. No, but CD Projekt Red is Polish, so
okay.
So he was just an advisor.
Okay, cool. Because I was about to say, if he was the head guy behind this, it's not a good look for us on the come up to get in the game industry. We know our Shigeru Miyamoto's, we know our Hideo Kojima's, we know these other Ed Boons and such. You don't see a lot of black people leading these kind of projects. So if someone like us to do this kind of thing, that would have set us back about 50 years in the game industry. So
that would have been the video game equivalent of Juicy Smollett.
Yep. So with that, folks, I think that's going to wrap up our episode on Cyberpunk 2077. On to the next one.
All right, that's the end of our podcast. Like and comment, dislike if you ain't feeling this content. Download discussion from the SoundCloud. Big shout out to you for being a part of the crowd. Follow us on every popular social media on the platform in the description below.
Thanks, y'all, for lending your ears for another episode. Subscribe.